I guess I'm kicking off here. I'm going to start off with a short little piece about Bongo's kind of use cases and the pedagogical side. By the way, I'm Daniel Opperwall from the Center for Extended Learning. I'm an online learning consultant over there, so helping instructors from all across campus and all different departments in their course design for fully online courses. And maybe I'll let Daspina introduce herself when I pass the baton to her. But yeah, so we're going to start off with a little bit of the pedagogy piece about what this Bongo thing is, give you a little bit of a sense of the use cases, and then hand it over to Daspina, who is a next level tech wizard, and will walk you through some of the setup stuff that you're probably wanting to know. So today we're going to show you, as we already said, a little bit about video assignment and group assignment within Bongo. And basically what these two functionalities of Bongo are at their core is tool for asynchronous presentations or other video or even sometimes audio products that are made by either individuals or groups. So when we talk about video assignment, what we're talking about is basically an individual assignment, and group assignment is the same basic thing, the same basic functionality, but with a group. It's really as simple as that. So there's two major spheres of use for this modality of individual assignment and group assignment. And the first thing that Bongo allows you to potentially do or consider in your courses is to asynchronously administer a presentation assignment. So that can include any kind of class presentation that you can imagine that you've maybe been using in a classroom. Presentations can be given just to you as an instructor. You can have group presentations. You can use narrated PowerPoints, practice exercises, really anything you can imagine students standing up and presenting. This can be done in Bongo. It can be shared with just you as an instructor or with the class. And any kind of presentation can be accompanied by peer review in Bongo. Bongo has some really nice peer review features. If you want to add either a formal or just totally informal peer review component to any assignment that we'll talk about today. And the peer review, I have to say, is very simple. It's very intuitive. And at CEL, it's really one of our favorite peer review tools, bar none, that's out there. So we really like it for that, if you're interested in peer review. So basically what's cool here, what's interesting here pedagogically, is the ability to administer presentation style assignments that used to require face-to-face contact or at least synchronous conferencing. Now with Bongo, you can do those type of assignments asynchronously. So you get that flexibility potentially with students for fully online courses, but still allow students to create and share presentation type works. So use cases here include language classes, business classes, public health classes, just to name a few that I've seen use this kind of thing. And it's really any activity and basically any discipline at all where a presentation would be useful in a classroom. You can usually translate that in some way, shape, or form over into Bongo. So that's the first kind of sphere of use, thinking of it as a presentation tool for students asynchronously. Second sphere or broad use case is looking at Bongo as a way of allowing you to require something other than or in addition to a written product or final paper for a course where you might be looking to get a little bit away from that traditional final essay or midterm essay or whatever it is, or any other written submission. So for example, there's a lot of interest lately in using podcasts as a form of assignment, final or midterm, whatever. I'll note that Bongo can help you do this. Bongo itself does not create audio files, but it can allow students to upload audio files. So you can consider podcast exercises, but other things, interviews, videos, video blogs, really any multimedia project that you might consider assigning to the students is easy to submit, easy to keep track of, easy to do peer review on with Bongo. Traditional essays, of course, still have lots of value, but if you are looking to get a little more creative for whatever reason, then the Bongo software is a great place to look to try to facilitate anything that has to do with multimedia. And I shall note here as well that for combined products too, which is something we see a lot of interest in a lot of fields where there's a written submission but also a presentation, that type of thing, Bongo does allow documents to be attached with the video submissions that students make, which allows you to keep things nice and clean and all in one spot. So yeah, so that's basically my spiel. The heart of it is that Bongo individual assignment and group assignment is a very simple tool at its core. It's a way of facilitating multimedia submissions from your students, and precisely because it's simple and really pretty easy to use, design-wise, pedagogically, it has all sorts of uses, anything you can really imagine, and we love it for that very fact. So I'm going to hand it over to Daspina now, who's going to show you how to actually go in there and make this all happen.
Perfect. Thanks, Daniel. I'm Daspina Fefekos. I'm a learning technologies analyst with the Center for Extended Learning. And I support a lot of our EdTech tools, Bongo, PabblePad, Learn. And I'm going to walk you through how to use video assignment today. I am going to turn my camera off just so I have a little bit better bandwidth while I'm doing this. So if you have any questions as I'm going through, please feel free to pop them in the chat. And then Daniel, if you or Ginny, someone, Brianna, wouldn't mind just shouting out if there are questions, then, okay, perfect. Thanks, Daniel. Then I'll try and address them as we're going through. And yeah, so let's get started. Okay, so I just want to make sure, can everyone see my screen? I think we're good.
Yeah, we can see it.
Perfect. Wonderful. Okay, great. So I'm going to start with just an introduction to Bongo settings. And to do that, you're going to access a video assignment from the Submit menu, and then you'll choose it from the list of options. And then once you land on this page, you may see a pop-up that you have to say okay to before you can move through. Please go ahead and do that. What it is it's the LTI passing your learn information and role to Bongo so that you get access based on your learn role. So if you're an instructor, you can create an assignment. If you're a student, you can submit, etc. And oops, sorry. I also want to point out here, whenever you're in Bongo, you should see a kebab menu. And when you click it, it will take you to the Bongo vendor documentation. That's the link I put in the chat. So it is available for you, but can also be accessed from the video assignment at any time. So to get started in creating video assignment, you're going to look for this large plus sign in the bottom right corner. And when you click on it, you'll see multiple options. So these are the various video assignment types available. Today, we're going to discuss individual and group, and then this afternoon session will cover question and answer and interactive. So I'm going to select an individual assignment to start, and then we'll look at the differences between this and a group assignment later. Most of the settings are the same. So we'll start here. You'll notice that some fields are required. And one other thing I want to point out is this Show Advanced button down at the bottom. My preference is to come in and click it first so that once I do, as I work my way through the settings, I see all of my options at once instead of showing it and then going back up and seeing new features and functions available. So what we're going to do is I'm going to start by putting in an assignment name and oops. Next, I'll select a due date. And to select it, you just click on the field and you'll see this calendar. You can toggle through and choose the date you would like the assignment to be due. One thing I do want to point out about video assignment is that these are soft deadlines. So students are still able to submit past that date. There are no hard deadlines, so it's just something to keep in mind. You also have the option to set a due time. And again, this is soft, but when you're in it, you'll see that you have the option to click between hours and minutes. And then to set the hour, you can try clicking on it, but I find it never goes where I want it to when I click. So my preference is to grab and drag it. Then when you want to set the minutes, you do have to click over away from the hours onto the minutes to see those options. And then same with AM versus PM. So I'm going to set this one for 6:30 PM and save it. And then underneath the due date and time, you'll see evaluation type. And Bongo has 6 different evaluation types available for video assignment. well, for the individual video assignment. Auto analysis is only available with the individual assignment, and I will talk more about that in a minute. But to start, you do have percentage. So you grade out of a percentage, usually 100. It simplifies it if you go with 100 because when you're auto generating your grade items in Learn, it's just easier. Beneath that is auto analysis. And if this is selected, actually, I'm going to talk about auto analysis in a little bit. I'll come back to it. Your next type is rubric. And if you decide to use the rubric, one thing to note is that the rubrics from Learn cannot be used in Bongo. You do have to create your own new rubric in Bongo, and you would do that by selecting the evaluation type, then clicking on these three dots and going to configure rubrics. Now I have a couple here. I can show you one of them. This is an example one I pulled from somewhere. I'm not even sure where, but you can see your ratings and your grading. And you can also add a new rubric by creating it in the system, very similar to the way you would create a Learn rubric, a lot of the same features and functions. Or you can upload a rubric, import one. So if you can get your Learn rubric exported in a proper format, then you could reuse it in that sense. So I'm going to go back to the configure assignment here. And once you do create your rubric, you can choose it from your list. And then that is the rubric you would evaluate students using. And then one other thing to note, and I apologize for jumping around, but if you plan to use a rubric for peer review, then it must be set as your evaluation type at the top. If I change this to anything other than rubric, down here, rubric grays out and it's not a selectable option. So just keep that in mind if this is important, that the students use a rubric to evaluate each other, then you will have to use it as your assignment type. There is one exception, and I'll talk about that in the group video assignment. The pass-fail is what it sounds like. So students either get a passing or a failing grade. Auto pass will send 100% to the Learn gradebook as soon as the student submits to the assignment. And then the 5-star rating will just break down each of the stars into a percentage. And that will be what is submitted to the Learn gradebook. And I will come back to the auto analysis. There's more info a little below, so I'll get to it there. Instructions are required, written instructions are required. So I'm just gonna include some now, but there's also the option to record instructions or upload a video. When you click on it, you can record either just your camera or your camera and your screen. You can choose to upload a video or select from resources. These would be pre-recorded Bongo videos that you can pull from that you've created at a previous time. I'm not going to do that right now. You can also choose to include post-submission instructions. So if there are steps that follow this assignment, like submitting to a discussion forum or a Dropbox or somewhere else, then you can include those steps here as well. And then there's the tool set. Now, the tool set is the tools you would like to make available to the students while they're in this assignment. So if you're using video, you would leave these all enabled. If you want to disable video, you can. You'll notice that once you do, auto analysis grays out. I'll explain a little bit more about that in a second. You also have the option to enable or disable submission of documents. So students could submit a video along with a document. And then there's meetings. In an individual assignment, meetings aren't that useful. It's a little difficult for students to schedule them here, but they can be super valuable in a group assignment. And I'll talk about how students can use that in those assignments in a little bit. Next up is auto analysis. So auto analysis, again, if selected as your grade type, you can choose to use the overall score of the report, the delivery score, or the content score, and that's determined based on your settings down here. So you have the option to create and configure key terms. I know one use case for this was in an optometry course where they wanted certain clinical terms to be included in the presentation. So what they did was they added the terms, and I'm just gonna be very basic about my terms right now. And then they can also set the number of occurrences you want that term used. You can add, I don't think there's a limit, as many as you want to this term, and also set the occurrences. If you change your mind and you want to remove any, you can just come back and click the little garbage can to delete those. So why is auto-analysis a thing? Well, it's actually a really handy tool. So what the auto-analysis does is it takes the student's recording and it basically assesses the recording itself. It will determine how many times key terms, if they were defined, are used. It will flag filler words students use, if they have incoherent words in their presentation, their rate of speech, and it will then determine their score based on all of those variables. I don't know of anyone using auto-analysis as the grade type. I think most instructors want to be more involved in the grading, but it is an option depending on your use case. So beneath,
I was just going to jump in there, Daspina, and say, yeah,
sure.
Sorry, could you? Oh yeah, I was just going to say that I think that's right. Very few people are using it to grade, but it really is cool if part of what you're trying to do in the activity is help students be more effective as presenters. I did it on myself. It was really helpful. I'm flagging the number of filler words and my pace, which is often too high. You've probably already detected that, and it's really cool for that. So turning it on anytime you're thinking about students trying to become better presenters, I would highly recommend.
Yes, I agree. Okay, so actually, why don't I pause for a second and, oh, I see there is a question. Can the auto-analysis discriminate between Wi-Fi tech quality and presentation quality? I don't know. I don't know if that's really come up. I guess if your video is freezing, it might flag that as pause or something, but I've not had it occur while I've been using video assignment or testing auto-analysis. So I can look into it more and get back to you. It doesn't, Rachel, it does not work with any other languages as of right now. This is only for English. I believe Bongo is working on adding more languages to the auto-analysis, but they haven't provided a time frame with which that would be available.
And with respect to non-native speakers and accents, I believe there have been some small issues with that at certain times, although it doesn't seem extremely picky, but it could happen if you have someone with a very strong accent. Yeah, it's good to be aware of that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Which are other reasons that you're probably going to, I mean, in general, I would almost always recommend against actually grading with auto-analysis for exactly these reasons, but it can be really helpful for students to see. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so next up, I'm going to start talking about peer review. And as Daniel mentioned, this is a very good tool for peer review. There are multiple options. So I'm going to talk about the options and then I'll let, I'll stop for questions at that point. So when you're setting up peer review, you can do automatic or manual. With the automatic setting, what happens is each time a student comes in to review peers, they'll see a random student listed at the top. They'll complete their peer review on that person before they're able to move on to the next. So it really does prevent students from picking and choosing which reviews they'll provide. They can't go and find their friends on the list and just give them reviews. If you go with manual, then yes, there are opportunities for students to choose which review they will provide, which peers' work they'll review. And if you select this, the same student is always listed at the top. So a little caution there that it's very possible that that top student or the top few students may get the bulk of the peer reviews. So I tend to recommend that you go with the automatic, but it all depends on your specific use case. Beneath that, there are settings for the peer review. So you can allow students to provide a peer review before they've submitted their own work. You can decide to conceal reviewer identity or the submitter identity. But if your students know their peers and what they look like, and these are video assignments, then they'll be able to tell who those people are based on the videos they're reviewing. So just something to keep in mind. Oh, okay, sorry. I'm distracted by chat questions. I'll go back to this and let Daniel handle the chat for now. Okay, so under the, once you've decided what settings you're gonna apply, and I'm gonna deselect all of those and leave it at automatic, you can set the number of peer reviews you want each student to complete. Now, this is another soft number. So if I set it to 3, students are still able to peer review the entire class list. It is up to them if they choose to go beyond the number required. And then the review type, again, we sort of talked about this. Assignment rubric must be selected as your evaluation type for it to be visible here. So you can go with either no rating or 5-star. And then you can also set due dates for when you want the peer review to be completed. So if my assignment's due on the 17th, perhaps I'll give them a couple days or maybe even a week to provide that. And again, it's still a soft deadline, so students could feasibly provide peer reviews beyond that date. So I set the time similar to how I did at the top when I was setting up the evaluation. And then this last option you'll notice is also grayed out. This is the rubric self-assessment. Again, it is dependent on rubric being chosen as your evaluation type. Once you do, you can enable it, and then students would evaluate themselves using this same rubric. Now I'm gonna pause now and see if there are any other questions before I get into the group assignment. Okay, then I will move on to group assignment now. Oh, did I just see the chat come in? John, yeah, I believe they are. When you use the automatic, what the system will do is it will elevate, yeah, perfect, Daniel. It'll elevate students who do not have a peer review to the top of the list, moving those with reviews further down so that it does cycle through the class list.
It's really nice for that, I have to say, because it takes care of some of the issues we have sometimes with other peer review systems where, you know, if a group or a pod of people loses 1 or 2 students, then things get really uneven. With Bongo, it's super smooth. It's just whoever's had the least peer review so far comes to the top of that list. And, you know, if several students have dropped, it doesn't mess you up. So it's really easy to use that way. That's a good question, Lori. We might have to look at your specific course because that should not be the case, I don't believe, if peer review is off. You should not be able to see other student submissions. Daspina, you're muted. I'm not sure if you're...
Thank you for that. I was talking.
I saw your cursor moving around.
I've done that a couple times in sessions, I forget. Okay. I think the biggest one for if they see other submissions may either be this setting or yes, peer review being enabled as a whole. So we can, if we have access to your course, I'm happy to take a look and review your assignment settings and see what we can figure out there. Okay, so I'm going to save this assignment now and hopefully everything will save fine. Perfect. And now I'm gonna pop in and I will show you the grading and student view and stuff in a second course in a few minutes, but I thought we'd just tackle creating a group assignment now and the differences before we move on to student perspective. So I'm gonna add a title again. These are required. Due date, exact same settings as before. You'll choose your time. You'll choose AM or PM and save instructions. Go there. And then you'll notice that there is no auto analysis. I did show the advanced settings again so that I see the full list of options. Your grade types are the same, but again, auto analysis is missing because it's not available for this assignment type. You can include post-submission instructions. You can again enable and disable these tools available for students. The thing that's different with the group assignment, when you leave the meetings enabled, what it allows is it lets the group members schedule an actual virtual classroom meeting with each other to discuss or work on their assignment together. These meetings can be recorded. If you wanted, the recording could be submitted, but if you're using it, a meeting to be as your submission, no other videos can be combined with or included in the submission. If you're using just the regular videos and say each student has a section of that presentation within the group that they're responsible for, they can each come in, record their videos independently, and then those videos can be stitched together in a specific order and submitted as an entire presentation for that group. So I do recommend leaving the meetings enabled for the group assignments so they can work with each other, but again, it will depend on your specific use case. For group options, Bongo has some neat options here. The first one is educator formed, and it is what it sounds like. The instructor would decide which students are in which groups. The second option is learner formed, and this is similar to Learn self-enroll groups where students would choose the group they want to be a part of. And then this last one is the system formed. And this one's kind of cool because what it does is it lets you set a start and end date for, or a due date for when students need to pick their groups. But the way the groups are generated using system formed is that students are asked to provide hours of availability within a week. So if they're typically available Tuesdays 7 to 9 at night, that they can enter in, and then Wednesdays it's 10 to 2 and etc. And then what the system does is it tries to match students up with similar availability within their groups. So it will generate the group based on the 3 students who are available from 7 to 10 p.m. just so that it makes it easier for them to work together as a team. So it's kind of cool. And then beneath it, we do have the same peer review settings. But one other thing I did want to talk about, and this is the one deviation when it comes to rubrics. If you want teams to evaluate each other, you can choose a rubric from here without having to have it be the assessment type or evaluation type at the top. So you'll see any rubrics you've created in Bongo here, and you can set that up for the teams to evaluate each other. You can also determine how many students per group, and you have to do your max before you can do your minimum because they're both default to 1, but you can set how many students minimum and maximum per group and help with that facilitation. And I'm going to change it back to educator form just because I do want to show you how to do that. And so we'll talk about that in a minute. Just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. So the peer review settings are the same. Number of required reviews, the 5-star, the dates, etc. are all the same as the individual assignments. So I won't walk through those again. And same with the self-assessment. So I'm going to save this assignment now. And I will show you how to populate groups. Okay, so to populate your groups, you're going to, and I apologize if I clicked too fast there, you're going to click the 3 dots for the assignment and you're going to choose manage groups. If you, I will point out here actually too that like say you wanted to adjust a setting for your assignment, you can go back into configure and get back into this page and say turn off peer review or whatever setting you want to adjust. So I'm going to go into manage groups now. And because I've set it up to use the educator formed groups, I will manually create them. If you're using the same groups for multiple video assignments. Once you create your first set of groups, you do have the ability to copy those groups from previously created assignments in the course. So that does help if you are using multiple video assignments or multiple group video assignments. So I've come here and there are no students. So to see your students, you'll want to click this Synchronize Roster button. And when you do, you'll see a list of students. Now this is my test course, so there aren't that many students in it. But you do have options to either randomly distribute groups, and to do that, you would select the number of groups and click create, and it will pop students into the groups accordingly. You can also do manually created groups, which I'm just gonna back up and I'll come back in and do this quick, because I want to show you what it looks like from the beginning. So if you're not going to use the random distribution, you would click this create groups button and you'll see the list, and I'll go with 3 groups and I'll click create, and nothing else has happened. So what I can do then is I can drag and drop students into the group I want to assign them to. If I created more groups than I need, I can delete groups, and I can also edit the names of the groups, which your students can also do. So that's just a fun FYI. Students have the ability to change their own group names. I don't think anyone has, but just something to be aware of. So I'm going to save this and allocate my students into groups. Okay, just give me 1 second now. Sorry, tickle in my throat there. So now what I'd like to do is I'm going to pop into a different course where I have a little bit of actual work in here. So I believe it was my peer review testing. Okay, so this is your instructor view of a video assignment, and I'm in an individual video assignment here of what your kind of overview looks like. So as students start working through, you have this dashboard, and it will tell you how many students have or have not viewed the assignment. And that would be clicking the link in content, which please don't let me forget to talk about that, because it is very important, and I will try and remember to come back to it. You can see who has viewed the assignment, who has work in progress, who has submitted work that has not been evaluated, whose work has been evaluated, and then which grades have been published. When you scroll down, you can see the status again, repeated for each individual student. And if you're using auto analysis, their report would be here. I may have one that has a report that I can pull up after. You have options here to view the student's work. So I'm going to click on needs evaluation. Now this one I didn't include a video. I only included a document just for just speed, really. You can see any peer reviews that this student, so you'll see here, this is the student who submitted. This is where you can enter the score, and I'll come back and do that. You can see what they submitted. If it's a video, you'll see the video box here and can click play. And then beneath it, you'll see which reviews. So they reviewed Willow. They've only completed 1 review. And then here you can see what comments, which is just garbled text that I added. And then if they have provided multiple reviews, you can choose to view them all at once or toggle through them as well. When you're ready to provide a score to a student, you can enter it here, and you do have the option to save as draft. One thing I would like to note is that if you save and publish, there is no way to revert to draft. So you would have to override the scores to zeros, save and publish those, to be able to adjust your grades at a later time. So I think it's probably best to work through your grading, save it as a draft, and make sure you're ready to publish it before you do click that save and publish button. And then once you are ready and you're satisfied with your scores, you can click save and publish. And what it'll do is it's going to push grades into your Learn gradebook. And I apologize, it's a very messy looking gradebook here. But I can toggle through and I will see my scores. Oh, did I swing past it? No, it's this one here. So you can see the test student has a score of 77, and that was added. I think that's the right assignment. I've been messing with this course a lot. So if it's not right, it's my course, not the system. I think maybe I'll
here I don't know the answer to. Can all grades be published at once?
Yes, they can. So I will show you that quickly. Go into overview. So if you're on this page, and even though these students haven't submitted, yeah, you can't add a score. I'm going to pick a different assignment. Apologies. Yes, okay, so I have no not viewed. Yes, there is a way to publish. It's up here. So if I was going through and I was providing draft evaluations for everyone, at the end of it, I would come back to this overview, and instead of publishing, save and publish in the individual page here, I would just go to that overview, and then I would be able to publish them all at once using the publish scores button up here. And I'm sorry, I don't have one that doesn't have scores not published to show you what that looks like. One other thing to note is that publishing the grade is what generates the grade item in your Learn gradebook. So if that's something you want to do ahead of time and set up your gradebook properly, if you're using categories or you want to just organize it before the students see it, one option is to impersonate the test student, submit the work, and then return to your own role in Learn, grade it, and publish it. But I do want to point out that if you're working in a group assignment, as soon as you publish work, publish a score, or a student, so in this case, the test student submits work to that group assignment, they are locked to their groups. So when you go into manage groups, you can't move them. So if you're using a test student, you might want to create multiple groups, add your test student to the very last group, and then don't add any other students to that group. The other thing you'll maybe need to do, depending on your situation, is you might want to reset the test student submission so that the test student's work isn't visible in the peer review side. If you don't do that, when students come in to peer review each other, the test student will be in the mix, and it can cause confusion for the students. So since I'm talking about it and still have 20 minutes left, I am going to show you how to reset an assignment. And I want to go in this one, I'll go into overview. And then if I go into someone who has a score, you'll see this tiny little swirly arrow here. This is how you reset a submission. So when I click on that reset, what's going to happen is their assignment is now no longer submitted. It's been moved back into the in progress area. The student will come in, they'll click this star and submit if they do want to resubmit that. But for testing, or if you're pushing your grade item, if you've impersonated the test student in individual assignment, as the instructor, you would reset it like I just did. Then you would return to impersonating the test student, come back in, and you would have to delete this to be able to delete the assignment as a whole. It hasn't come up that frequently, but it is one of those quirks that it's probably best to be aware of, especially on the group assignment side where the test student submission would be in the mix with peer review and stuff, or in groups. Okay. Okay, so I've covered, I'm just going to check my notes because I think I've covered most of it, but it didn't take as long as I thought it would. So I will pause for questions while I look. And okay. Yeah, good call, Daniel. Another option is you can create a test assignment for students to play around with without connecting it to the gradebook or ever grading it. It will still give them that space to submit and view, if I didn't misunderstand that question. But okay, so we've covered it. Oh, I do want to talk about the peer review steps from a student perspective. So I briefly mentioned, and I'm just going to get in here. I briefly mentioned there are multiple steps. When you're in as a student and you arrive here, you can't navigate to your next peer's work without having completed the full peer review for the current student's work. So if I come in here and for students, I have to watch the video or open the file. I have to provide a comment and I have to provide a rating if it's been enabled for that assignment before I'm able to click next peer. So just something to be aware of. And then the last thing I absolutely want to talk about is critical. So if this step isn't done, none of your students will see the video assignment. So I'm just going to show you quickly. I've got 2 assignments there. I'm going to impersonate a test student and I'm going to go directly into video assignment here. Oh. And this was that pop-up I was mentioning. Some of you may see. This is the one that passes your information from Learn to Bongo through the LTI. So as a student, I'm not seeing any assignments here. So the missing step is that we need to add assignments to the content for students to be able to access them. No matter what we do, students will never see an assignment under video assignment if they haven't clicked a link in content. So I'm going to walk through that step really quickly. And I do have instructions written for this that I can share through the chat. But what you want to do is you want to add it to the module relevant. You're going to use this existing activities and you're going to scroll down and you'll see video assignment and virtual classroom. So I'm going to choose video assignment and then, good, I'm in the right course. You'll see the list of any video assignments you've created. And when you click on it, it will add the link to here. Now I want to, my preference is to, if I click on it as the instructor, it'll open in window. My preference, sometimes I like to open it in a new window. I think it'll depend on your preferences and how you set it up. But I want to show you what happens now for this test student when I go through the content link. So I'm going to navigate back to content. You'll see the demo assignment. And now when I go in as the test student, I'm given access to the assignment. So here's the rubric that's being used. I can view it. I can add work. And within this view, this is what students have access to while they're working through their assignment. So they can come in, they can choose to record the video. And again, they have the same options as instructors when creating those instructional videos for the assignment. They can share their camera, their screen, or they can upload a video. They can choose to add a file. They can add links to different locations. And if I were in a group video assignment, I would also be able to create a virtual classroom meeting for me and my peers. Now, when this functionality is used in an individual assignment, it can be created. And I'm going to set it for today, and it is 10:46. I don't know if it will let me, but I can go for 10:50. I think you cannot launch yet. It's 5 minutes, so it must be at least 5 minutes in advance. And I'm going to try that. There we go. And then students cannot launch the meeting until they're within a window. And I'm not sure why, but virtual classroom meeting saves are taking much longer than they ever used to. They used to save instantly. I'm noticing it across the system. It will save, but it's there. For students, I do want to just point out, so if you're in a group, you also will be able to see those virtual classroom meetings by going to, like, scheduled for the group, by going to the virtual classroom page. You'll see they have an assignment meeting section and a class meeting sections. The class meeting would be instructor scheduled. Assignment meetings are those created by them or their peers. And then if they want to launch it, they can use the launch button. Okay, so I'm going to go back to video assignment here. So So I'm just going to show you what the steps are for a student by uploading a file quickly. The standard file I use for submissions. And now, excuse me. So before the student, once the work is added here, but before the student has submitted it, you'll see this as, I'm going to see if I can do this as me and break all the learn rules by looking at the same page as two different people. But now when I go into this demo assignment and look at the test student, you're going to see the status has changed to in progress. And as the instructor, you can click on it and you can see what work has been submitted to that in progress area. So you can open the file. If it's a video, you can watch it, even though it hasn't been submitted. And then once the student goes through, and I knew that was going to happen, so I'm just going to see if I can do this before it really gets mad at me. So I've clicked the little star. It's now pink. It's going to add it to my submission. So I'm going to click submit. I'm going to say yes. And then now that has been properly submitted by the test student. So then I'm going to stop being a test student here before I get more errors on the previous screen. And it's not letting me, so I'm just going to do that. So now I'm back in as me, and I'm going to go back to the overview, and you'll see submitted work. So now its status has changed to needs evaluation. And when you click on it, you can use the rubric, because that was my grade type selected. Again, save as draft. And then since we had the question earlier, I'm going to go back one more time and publish all scores. So this would be how you would publish all of the scores for the students on this assignment at once. So you'll see there's a little pop-up, are you sure? And then just say yes. And then those scores will be pushed to the grade book. And if the grade item hadn't been previously created, it will generate it at this time. And you'll see in your grade book, it'll match the assignment title, and you'll see that it's connected to an external learning tool. You can click on it and it will give you the information. Okay, so I think I've been all over the place, and I apologize for that. I tend to go down rabbit holes when I'm doing these sessions. So I'm going to stop, and I'm going to check the chat and see if there are questions that, Daniel, are there any questions that you'd like me to chime in on? I see you've been responding.
I have been responding as much as I can as we go along. The most recent one here is, can students preview their video before they submit?
Yes, they can. So here, I'll go back and I will be the other test. Oh, wrong course, sorry. Actually, I'm going to close that one and that one. I'm going to go back in and I'll be the other test student this time. And that's a different test. I will go into video assignment and click continue. Oh, and it's not going to work because I didn't follow my own advice and go through the link. I'll do that now. And then when they go in, so I'm going to record, but you're probably going to get my ceiling rather than me just because of the angle of my screens now. So I'm going to record, and oh, I am in the picture. So there you can see. So this is the sort of the intro. Once I click record, now it's recording. I'll just let it go for a few seconds and then I'll stop. And then here I have the option, I can delete it if I don't like it, I can download it if I do, and I can save it. So I'll go with save, and it's going to process. And I don't know if that will process before our session ends. I've noticed quite a bit of a lag recently, but it depends, I think, on the general load. But once it is processed, you'll see there's a preview button here. That's how they can preview it. If auto analysis was enabled, they can also preview their report before they submit it. So if they've used multiple filler words and they want to try and fix it, then they could come back and re-record it. This process, once it's done, You can delete the video, you can delete it in progress. I don't know if that always works, but they can re-record and use that feedback from the analysis to improve their submission. Okay, sorry, I see a couple questions.
Lori, yeah, if they're creating the video in Bongo or if they upload it, they'll have that preview option. And if they've created it elsewhere, then they can, of course, view it before even uploading it. So yeah, they have opportunities to see it before they submit, unless you've set up a certain type of Q&A assignment, but that's not for today. That's for the other section. Carolyn, I wanted to respond to Carolyn here. Concerned about student workload, written documents have editors to help with grammar. Do you know if students wind up spending more time on an assignment because they worry about editing the video? Finding as an instructor that I spend more time trying to get a video clean than I would doing a live session that is recorded. It's a concern, I think, Carolyn. It's something to be well aware of. I don't think there's just a straight answer for you to say, no, it doesn't take any more time. It certainly could take more time. And yeah, I mean, being aware of that as you design your assignments and maybe aware of how overwhelmed they are. It also came up earlier in the chat, this is another tool. Do students ever get, we know that students sometimes get overloaded with too many tools. That's absolutely another big concern as well. So I think my own advice would just be, you're right to be thinking about that and be cognizant of it when you create the assignment. Be careful about how long of a product you expect. An 8-page paper assignment might become something like a 5-minute video. So being aware of that and the differences in what they're going to be able to give to you in terms of that content are very important, because there's a little more time spent on the creation of the thing itself, and so you might get not as deep an engagement with a piece of content when you go with a video of some kind.
So this here, back to the preview question. So now I'm previewing that video. I'll mute that, but this is the video preview that you can see when you do record within Bongo. And I do believe that once you upload a video, it will work as well. And I just want to talk about the final, oh, sorry, Daniel, go ahead.
I was just going to say to Lori, who had a student, said they could not. I guess the student uploaded from external, so maybe that preview isn't there if they've uploaded an external file, Daspina. Is that possible?
It's possible, but if they're uploading the file, then they would have it viewable in their machine. Exactly. Yeah. So, yeah. Okay. Sorry, I see that question about the preview, and nope, I have not submitted. It's this little eye icon that they click to the right of the video. So they can add multiple videos, and I can show you this really quick too. And I'll show you how they do the preview. So, I have a thing there. Okay. Oops. There we go. So I'll just record a second one, really short, couple of seconds here, and then stop it, and I'll save it. And if it renders in time, I'll try and stitch them together. But here you'll see there is a preview button regardless of the video. And then when you go back up here, you'll see this combined video option students have. And what it'll do is it'll let them add the videos in the order they want them stitched together. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize for my fast clicking. Yes, I do that. Is it clear now where that button is, or do you want me to show one more time?
And I wanted to clarify for you, Jenny, too. So Daspina is just showing us how they could submit 2 or 3 videos all together. If what they want to do is upload 3 and then choose their favorite, they can also do that. So they will make the final selection of which pieces get submitted by clicking that star button that Daspina is showing you there. So they could make 10 copies or however many they want, and then decide, number 8 is the best, and then just submit that. Absolutely, they can do that.
So if this
Lori's also asked about grading with the rubric and how the value goes into the grade. Yeah, that's a good question.
So it does just convert it. So if your rubric score, here, I'll go back to one that's graded. I'm a test student. Sorry, just give me 1 second here. I'll go back as me. think this is the one that had the rubric. So when you want to grade using a rubric, when you come in, you'll see it here. And if I want to change it, I just click on what I want to change and save and publish, and it'll overwrite the previous grade. Now the student has a 4 out of 10, and it's just visible on your grading page when you come to that submission. The students do see it as well. I'll go back to being a test student quickly. The students can see the rubric when they enter the assignment. It is towards the top for them, so they know what they're being evaluated by once they go in here. So they can see the rubric as well. Does that answer your question? Yes. Oh, and then the grade. Sorry, 1 second. So when your gradebook item is generated, the default is always out of 100 and your weight is 0. So when I graded that, the student's rubric grade will have been converted, and there, to a score out of 100 rather than the 4 out of 10 that the rubric assigned. So that's how that works. And then similar with if you're using like the 5-star, if you gave them 3 stars, they would get 60 out of 100. Pass fail is 100 or 0, and auto pass is 100. And then if you're using the auto analysis, it will be the report score that is pushed out of 100.
And yes, so I think, Lori, if you were deducting for lateness, I think you would have to do that manually, right, Daspina? You'd actually have to go in and...
So you can, yeah. You could, yeah, that gets a little tricky if you're using a rubric, because you would either have to adjust it here at the top, which you can't do when you're using the rubric. So that might be a comment you add, and then a manual grade change in the Learn Gradebook for that student. So if you're docking 5 points or something, you would do it in the Learn Gradebook. But I would also recommend that you note it so that the student knows why that score is lower than what they're seeing in the assignment. Otherwise, they will have questions.
Just confirming the students do see the graded rate rubric, correct?
Oh, perfect. Yeah, I believe so. Sorry, I saw another question about the rubric sum, and I don't know if we can change that. Score here. Show scores. No, I don't see a way to override it here. You used to be able to do it from the overview, but I don't believe that that works anymore. So I think your only option is to override, because it does bring you into the assignment. The only option to override is to do it in the Learn Gradebook.
Yeah.
And then, Daniel, were you able to confirm the students can see the rubric, the graded one, or should I go in?
I'm almost certain, but no, yeah.
Okay, I'll do it. Quick check.
I'm about 99%, but maybe we should just make that 100.
I think so too. Yeah. Yep. Okay. So, I click on the score and I can see what I got across the board. So it doesn't show the full rubric. It shows what I got in the rubric, but they did see that rubric before they submitted. So, okay. All right, we are at time. I apologize if I went too fast or I didn't cover anything that you wanted me to. I'm happy to stay on for a few extra minutes if anyone has questions.
Is there an option to save the rubric rather than publish it? I don't think
yes,
so.
You can still do your.
Okay.
You can do your draft. You can do your draft, so it would be save as draft, not save and publish when you're in there. So. I don't have a second assignment. Oh, I'm a student anyway. But yeah, I don't have another one here that I can show you with that, I don't think. There is an option to save the draft.
Great.
Sorry, Daniel?
John has also asked if we have any templates with standard instructions for students when we start creating these assignments.
I do have some documentation, and it was one of the links I put in, but I put in the instructor. So if you go to the student side for Bongo, we do have some best practices recommendations. We've got privacy during live events, and then a few of the steps on how to do peer review, how to schedule the meetings. But they are more technical steps, so I don't know if it would suit what you're asking. It might be more of like a pedagogical technical hybrid set of documents that you might need. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think the place to start, where I would usually start, is the Bongo knowledge base that has student-facing instructions. I posted it a couple times here, but I'll just post it one more time
perfect.
in the chat.
Yeah.
That has some good student-facing instructions. Daspina is showing it to you here. This is a really good knowledge base. Not all tools have such a good and user-friendly set of instructions. That'll give you all the technical side. What you might be looking for is very assignment-specific instructions. We don't really have anything, I think, just kind of fully publicly available at this point. Every assignment is a little bit different, but you know, I don't want to say reaching out to CTE. Am I allowed to say reach out to CTE? Can I say that?
You are. Sure you are.
Can I say that, Brianna? I know CTE has some great folks. Be happy to help you, and CEL as well. So we do have certain things kind of in file folders, so to speak, digital file folders, but I don't think we have anything that's just kind of out there yet, unless you know something, Brianna, that I'm not aware of.
No, I don't, but we can get something going. So yeah, always feel free to reach out to CTE.
Yeah, John made an excellent point that the Keep Learning site might be a good place for
sure.
some of this. Yeah.
Good idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
But on the technical side, that knowledge base is very, very helpful and should cover basically everything you need.
Yeah. Yeah, I no longer have access. This is since I've left IST and come to CEL. I can't update any of these anymore. So if you do notice issues with anything, you can let me know and I can pass it on. But yeah, there's more to come. It's just I'm not sure who's taken that over since I've left. So. Okay.